Hey there everyone, and this is a stream for designing for a mount for this camera that you see on here. I did a test stream the other day, and what I found out was that this camera likes to fall over and also is not perched in a particularly good spot on my monitor. So basically two things that I am doing today is making a dovetail mount for the lift pod, which is the thing you see in the thumbnail for the video. And lift pod is one of the more popular mounts on Thingiverse. I printed it out forever ago, but I had a GoPro mount style setup on that thing, and now I would like to attach the camera to it. And the solutions that I saw on Thingiverse were not particularly good, so I'm designing my own. The next thing that the mount also needs to do is it's gonna need to also slide into another attachment on my monitor, since that's where the other place goes. So in the test stream that I did the other day, I wanted to set it up shooting straight down onto my desktop, and that kind of works, except for again that's a bit awkward and had a tendency to fall over. That gave a wide field view of what was going on the desktop. The lift pod is for the close-up shots. This camera is a bit old, and it's 1920, which is not terrible, but obviously zooming in is not terribly effective. For the time being, if you do hear anything in the background, that would be my printer running. It's printing a piece that I have for a video I'm going to be putting together later on, and it may start running again after we're done, once we start printing test pieces. So any weird noises that you're not familiar with probably are my printer. So anyway, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and, now that we know what we're looking at here, I'm going to go ahead and get this a bit smaller. I'm going to keep it on screen just because it gives some reference for anybody just tuning in. Otherwise, in here in Fusion, first thing I'm going to do at any rate is get my measurements. Again, we're going to be doing a dovetail mount. I'm just going to use the GoPro mount dovetail as a basis. So I'm just going to recreate that really quick. And that looks to be 10 millimeters, a little over 10 millimeters, 10.3 by 38-ish on the front face. So let's get that. And let's make a new component. So we're doing this right. Alright, front face, get it centered, and we said that was 38, and I already forgot the first number, 10.3-ish, 10.3-ish. And then along the bottom, it looks like it has a little bit of a lip before it actually starts the dovetail. That looks to be something like 2.15 millimeter. Actually, let's get this extruded first. The width on this guy is going to be 49. I'm getting 49.85. It could be 50. It probably supposed to be 50 under the squeeze and calibers. So I'm going to extrude this 50, and then we'll come back and get the dovetails in here that I was talking about. Project, turn you off, and then like I said, dovetail starts about 2 millimeters up, it looks like. And to the top of the dovetail, we've got about 5 millimeters, it looks like. Throw that in here. 5 millimeters. And then for the depth of the dovetail, we are looking at 3.5, it looks like. 3. Yeah, it might just be 3. So we'll make that 3 there. And then just quinkadink that. And we got a dovetail. Body. I always do symmetric just because. It's one of those things, Fusion sometimes gives you an error, like a fake error, because it's like, oh, it can't produce tool body, but it is what it is. Then we'll go ahead and mirror that across the axes feature. And if you're not seeing any of the toolbar pop-ups, that's because Fusion is weird on multi-monitor setups. And the tool pop-ups actually end up on my other monitor. Alright, and that is the basis for the dovetail that sits in the lift pod. And again, that dovetail I want to keep attached to the webcam, so we're going to have to design the monitor mount also around that dovetail. So, next, I guess I want to do the camera base. So, let's pull this open really quick. Bring this up. This base towards the bottom here, and it's one of these interesting things where I'm not sure how I'm going to point on this on screen, but that first segment that has the screw hole in it, that will be attached to the dovetail, and that I'm thinking is going to end up sliding because the camera is going to be mounted exactly as you see it there to the monitor. That way all the articulation is towards the base, or towards the floor rather. Towards the base of the monitor is what I was thinking, but towards my floor, towards my desk, we don't need to be pointing up at the ceiling, so therefore all these bends in here are going to end up going downwards. That way we can adjust further into the desk. That seems to be the correct way to set this up, at least as I'm thinking about it. So since the dovetail is going to be on the top there, where the screw is, anything else that's built around there is going to have to be a bit taller, which is a little obnoxious, but we will deal with that when we get there. So anyway, modeling that first segment, like I said, is what we'll be doing next, and that's the only part of the camera I'm going to bother modeling because there is no necessity to model the rest of it. So, camera base. And let's just turn you off. Alright, the camera base. Now I can keep these dimensions on the camera base width going across as tight as possible. So I'm going to call that 43.3. Oh, and actually one thing I forgot to do is turn some music on. I prepared some music this time. Music courtesy of Little V. Last I checked, his policy is, yes, you can use his music. No, he doesn't do tabs, so I will be using his music, and last I checked it was not up too loud, but I guess we'll discover going forward. So anyway, back to the drawing. Now the music's on. I said 43.3, and yeah, we're still facing the front. And this space is a bit rounded, but yeah, now you can definitely hear my printer because it just finished the print. So the base is a bit rounded. I'm not going to bother compensating for that. I'm just going to treat it as a square. 43.3 is what I said. And then I can be tight to the sides, as I was saying earlier before I started the music, but the back side I'm going to leave some clearance just to give us space. I'll model it up as the full size, but when we actually design it, I'll throw some clearance in there because there's no need for it to be flush against the back. So that's where we're at. So this first segment, I'm going to call it 53.5. That's rounding up a little bit, but I think that's probably alright. Oh, that's the depth though, so let's get the thickness on this boy. I'm gonna call it 11. Again, that is also rounding up a little bit, but we have clearance, so with the clearance I tend to round up anyway. And 53, did I say 53.3? 54. Let's call 54. Just to be safe. Again, I can go... My thought is I can go out the back as much as I want, so it doesn't necessarily matter. And really quick, I'm just gonna mute myself to pop this. Actually, I'll leave the print cool down a little bit. I was gonna get the print off the print bed, but it doesn't necessarily matter. So, here's a camera base. The only real feature that I need on it is the screw hole, the mounting hole. It's a 1/4-20 hole like everything else, camera related. Turn you off. And this hole should be centered on the base. I'm assuming it's centered on the base. I'm not gonna bother checking that one. And to the top of the hole is about 23. That's a very rough estimate because the hole and the base of the thing are off by quite a bit of elevation and my calipers don't quite reach, but it should be sufficient, especially because we're being rough with all these depth estimates. And that, for all intents and purposes, can go all the way through because we don't particularly care. Alright, so there's our camera base. I'm going to go ahead and colorless black, differentiate it, black plastic, and that should be everything we need. So dovetail, camera, let's go back up top. Appearances, let's make this green plastic to match my lift pod. Lift pod is neon green technically speaking, but I'm not going to fuss. And now we are going to go ahead. The lift pod actually, let's see. When I have this mounted to this, yeah, it's perpendicular. The lift pod does go perpendicular. So let's get that rotated. Rotated. Let's... Would have made my life easier to... I was gonna reposition... yeah, I'm still gonna reposition it. Just in case for the future, I'm gonna reposition this on its origin, which is what I should have done in the first place. I should have symmetric extruded, but it's not that important. Body. Whoops. And body. Okay, here's the funny thing. I normally don't align bodies. Right? So let's do that. Nope, that's not gonna work. Alright, we're going to do this way. We're going to do it the way I should have done it in the first place. Symmetric, whole distance, 50. There we go. Now it's centered. And just because I made the same mistake over here, we're going to go ahead and fix that. Symmetric, whole distance, okay. And now everything is centered on their origins to make life easier. So, back to what we were talking about earlier, I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees on its origin. Select body. Let's make sure we're selecting the right body. Whoops. Don't activate that. Rotate, select axis, and body. 90 degrees. And there we go. Alright, just a moment for coffee. Okie dokies. And we'll reactivate the top one and get these guys aligned. Align. Yeah, we can just do this. That to the top of that. Come on. Fusion's gonna be finicky now, isn't it? Yep, it's gonna be finicky. And instead of fighting it, we are going to align components. Turn the camera base off first. Nope. Nope. I am clicking all the wrong buttons today, unfortunately. So let's try this again. One more time. I quit life if I screw this up this time. Turn the camera base off. Align. There. Nope. What do I have selected? Camera base. Dovetail mount. The middle bottom is now aligned with the dovetail mount. We did it. Yay. And we'll capture position. That, however, is not centered horizontally, unfortunately. Let's try this again. Fix that. Whoops. Wrong click. That face. Alright, cool. Now the origins are aligned. Now I'm happy. Finish position. Groovy. Alright. There we go. How long has it been? Let's see. Streaming for 15 minutes. Yes, we just hit the 15 minutes mark. And we have the very basics of what we have here, what we're trying to get here. This part, actually, the dovetail mount, I probably can just print right off if I wanted to, but I'm not, because I'm going to want to print test prints, and that will tie up my printer for however long as that takes. So instead, we're going to go ahead and get some test prints for the mount that goes on the monitor, is what we're going to do. Turn the body off here. Whoops. Okay, I wasn't in a sketch. Understood. Dovetail mount. Turn you back on. Turn you off. Construction for the top of the dovetail mount. Get that. And now we project. Now we're actually in the correct mode. Let's see. Turn the camera base back off. Turn the body back on. Just actually, I don't need to turn the body back on because we're not actually gonna. Are we gonna do anything? Yeah, we're not actually gonna do anything with the body, so I can turn the body off. Keep it out of the way. Look at that. Oddly, that does not look centered on there, does it? Fascinating. Oh no, that's the outline of the camera base, which is why it's not centered, because it's not centered on the camera base. That makes sense. Alright, and then what is actually a nut size of a quarter 20? Give me half a second. I'm going to mute myself for just a second while I go through a bunch of bags. Alright, and we're unmuted. So, quarter 20 nut that I have here, I'm pretty sure this is quarter. Let's double check. Switch you over to inches. Yep, that's quarter. Quarter 20 nut that I have here. Fractions. And now we're going to go millimeters. 11 millimeters across. And that should be all we need. Distance. 11 millimeters across. And for orientation, I'll just keep this horizontal, or parallel rather, with the camera mount edge. And let's see. Anything else we need here? Nope. We're just making a hole and a captured nut portion for the nut in the bottom, so that should be everything we need here. So that's going to go all the way through the dovetail mount. Distance all symmetric, like I said. Yeah, see, and it's giving me the tool error. We'll just go inside for now. And then the nut. And I was incorrect. I forgot to get the thickness of the nut. Fortunately, it's right here, so I'm not going to make too much noise. Let's go. Thickness of the nut is, we're going to call that 5.6 millimeters. Minus 5.6. Or nope, we're facing the bottom right now. 5.6. Yeah, it's funny because, right, the camera base is centered. The whole entire camera base is centered on there. The hole is off-centered, but I think I prefer just to keep the camera base centered. Let me go back to the top to make that more obvious. So, yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, it's off-center on the dovetail mount, but it is what it is. And that concludes that portion. So now we got to flip this upside down and figure out how we're mounting this on our monitor, which frankly is a little bit more difficult. Actually, fascinatingly enough, I just realized that hole I modeled that hole as going all the way through the base here, and obviously that does not go all the way through the base. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, but as it doesn't go all the way through the base, we don't need that captured nut I just spent all that time on, because we're only going to have a screw. And since we have a screw, I'm going to have to get a screw size and do that instead. I think I'll use the hex head quarter that I have here for my size. That's 11, just like the... Yeah, actually, because that's 11, it's a little bit skinnier, but I think I'll keep the extra depth anyway. So we can actually leave that as is, as it turns out. Yeah, so the... Actually, one thing I will do, I take that back. We'll go ahead and make that a circle instead. Finish. There we go. And now the bolt that goes through will be up in there. Alright. Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. And now the somewhat tricky part, because how this wants to slide in here. So back to, we're going to be making a camera mount, and let me just, for my monitor, camera mount for my monitor next. This one goes into the lift pod. I don't want to have to unscrew this off the lift pod every single time, which is why I want to incorporate this dovetail mount into the mount going on my monitor. So monitor mount, and the tricky part here, right, is that this is the orientation that I would want to slide the dovetail into, and then just use the dovetail to piece into the mount. That way the mount is holding the dovetail. Unfortunately, that's not going to work because the camera needs to be facing this way. So obviously, if I build a mount, let me just draw this up really quick so that we're all on the same page, and flip you over. If I make a mount like this with my monitor down here, so here's my monitor, here's my mount, and then I use this dovetail to feed in, then that means my camera is heading this direction, and now my camera is running through the mount. So that's why that doesn't work. One thing we can do, and is a good thing that I didn't actually start printing this yet, is we can modify this dovetail mount. Did I just get rid of my component? I did. We can modify the dovetail mount and turn it into a four-sided dovetail mount, which should not interfere with the with how it sits in the lift pod. I don't believe it will. And we will then have dovetails going perpendicular that can slide into the mount. So we'll do that. Actually, you know what? Let's back up before I even put the dovetails in there. That way we get a clean surface to work off of. So we'll roll back here. That construction surface is on the front, or on the side rather. Side. And now I want one on the front, quote unquote front. Side. Front. Obviously this says right instead of front, and this one says front. It's back to we rotated it 90 degrees. So that probably could be better worded, but I'm not going to worry about it. And as I recall, bodies. Actually, there's a couple ways I can do this, right? I could along path the dovetail. Actually, let's try that really quick. That's not something I do terribly often, but let's see. Hop on the bodies, sketch, next, and that sketch. Alright, so we can take this dovetail and pattern it along path. Or actually no, that's not pattern, that's sweep. Path. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, there we go. That worked out well. Alright, cool. That makes our life easier. And then I can just delete these features, delete those features because those are no longer necessary. And we're back to it. So yeah, now we have a four-sided dovetail, which means that we can use the dovetail over here to slide the camera mount into. Let's get back up here. Monitor mount. Here's our nominal front. And I will go ahead and keep this on the origin like we were discussing earlier to make things easier to align. Flip it upside down because this is how the camera is going to be going into the monitor mount. And start projecting some stuffs. And that's probably enough. It's a little ugly for the projections, but we'll work with it. It's one of those things. So down here, let's get an overall size. This, I'll leave myself 3 millimeters of room for the camera. And one of those things I can always, after we cut it out, Add a little bit of space. Get this line. I actually want this going parallel. Alright, Fusion's not going to give it to me. I saw it for a second there, but have that parallel to that line. And I'm going to quink-a-dink it for right now, I think. Because I don't know. See, I was going to quinky-dink it like this. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We'll bring this guy in to 3 millimeters. 3 millimeters, and basically, again, I'm just building out the frame here. And 3 millimeters on the top sounds fine to me. So yeah, 3 millimeters all around. What I could have done. Let's back up, and I probably should just do instead is throw a bounding box on here, and then I use collinears rather than quink dinks most of the time because they're easier to get rid of. One of those things when you start clicking these and then you have all these different coincidence marks, they get confusing sometimes, and then you start deleting the wrong ones. So that's why I use the collinears instead when I'm doing bounding boxes and whatnot. So we can do that and just do an offset 3 millimeter. That's the quicker way to do it. I was thinking about playing with the sizing a bit more, but it's probably not necessary. Again, this is going to be fixed in place with the dovetail, so the only thing that really matters is this dovetail, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So we're going to go ahead and we'll make this the full length of the base, the camera base, and I will use two-sided for this one rather than symmetric. So that is set to all, not to object. So there's that. Yep, that's the correct direction. That's a positive number. Come back to this side. And that is the outer frame done. And then we just want to fill in this slot for the dovetail. Wrong. Collapse that so I don't get confused anymore. There we go. Now the slot for the dovetail. Two-sided. Whoops, that is not two-sided. I am missing two-sided. There we go. Two object. Two object. And then we will mirror this to keep everything symmetrical. Mirror. Feature. Whoops, wrong feature. And mirror that across that axis. Just leave it on adjust for the heck of it. So there's that, and let's color this yellow. Plastic matte. And we'll pop back up here to see how this is looking. Turn the dovetail on, turn the sketch off. And I've got another sketch open somewhere. Dovetail, yep. Multiple sketches open. Nice. There we go. So yeah, that's that dovetail going into there. Again, the front of the camera will extend this way. So this is the front hinge basically. And obviously this has no back to it, so it doesn't necessarily matter. So this can be pushed in and out as much as it really wants to be. You know, it doesn't have to be sitting just flush. It can be adjusted forward, backwards. And the only thing I'm really worried with it, I'm going to set it up. Obviously, I'll set up the camera angle a couple times. Gail, thanks for the comment. Yeah, so this is all plastic. Like this, as you can see up in the corner there, that's the webcam I'm using. It is not particularly heavy, and yeah, the 3mm plastic frankly should. I'm using PETG, and PETG is stretchy to begin with. It has a lot of flex and give to it. PETG is what I print most of my stuff, so even if it stretches a little bit, it's not going to actually shear like PLA or stuff like that. So I'm not terribly worried about the weight on it. And obviously, again, the weight's low enough that I don't think anything will really happen with it. Thank you for the question. Back to this. So this is the main housing, and next we need to make a mount for my monitor. So I'm going to mute myself for a second to look at my monitor and see how I want to do this. Okay, so looking at my monitor, I'm pretty sure the only way I really want to do this is just do a sleeve here to go on the monitor, and then I'll throw a nut and a bolt back there to act as a tensioner. So that's how I will go about keeping it secure. It's one of those things, again, ideally set it up once and then never have to set it up again. Well, I shouldn't say never have to set it up again, but it won't move that often is the idea. And because it won't move that often, I'm pretty sure I can get away with just having a simple sleeve here, as you're about to see, and then adding a bolt just to help keep pressure on it. So let's turn all this stuff off to get out of our way. Go linear. Yeah, and see, I just did a quinkadink out of habit there. Let's switch that back. And then do this. Now, shoot, I already forgot the number it was on my monitor. I think it's 37. Nope, that would be 27. Good thing I double checked. So, on the front side, I'm going to go ahead and keep... Yeah, I mean, I just sat here and said 3mm was fine, right? So, it's funny. It's funny, you know. I kind of feel like thickening it up just because I have the space, because obviously this up here is 30-ish, 30 plus. So, I mean, I'm only going to be using 27 rather. I'm only going to be using 27 of all the space I have, so I feel like I can thicken this up. So this isn't a matter of necessarily doing it for structural reasons, but rather because I have the space. So this 27 is what I have to work with, or what my monitor needs rather. I'm gonna, I guess I'll use an M5 bolt, so let me grab one of those for reference really quick. Let's see. I was gonna mute myself, which is why I stopped talking, but this isn't gonna make as much noise as digging out my Imperial stuff. Alright, so here's an M5 bolt, and where's my M5 nuts? There's my M5 nuts. Okay, cool. The M5 nuts what I'm looking for, because again, I'm gonna do a captured nut in there to act as the basically insert. Just it's effectively a threaded insert. I don't think I have M5 threaded inserts. No, it looks like the biggest I have is M4. So yeah, since I don't have a threaded insert to put in the back here, I'll just use a nut. Pretty simple 3D printing stuff. And the thickness on this M5 is about 375. So I'm just going to model that up really quick. we're not actually going to cut it right now, so I'll keep it as that. And again, since I have the space, I'll do 5 here just for the heck of it. Throw in a center line to get this centered. Do that, and then this line here, the back part of the sleeve, I'm just going to run collinear with that because that makes it easier to get the bolt in and out rather than sliding it through the side. I'll just slide it in the back of the sleeve. And that completes it. So let's extrude this so that we can see what exactly I'm looking at if you're not following along. Distance to object. There we go. So yeah, so you can imagine, again, this is the front right here. Front, nominal front. So this is the front of my monitor. It's hanging off the front here. And then it sits, just loops over here, sleeve is what I was calling it. And now we'll come back in here, add that captured nut for the tensioner. Project that, look at it, turn off the body, and center it. And I said 3.75. Let me do that first. Turn that. And we'll keep that parallel with that just to add some constraints to it. 3.75. Oh no, 3.75 is my thickness. My mistake. I was gonna say, that doesn't make any sense. 7.8. 7.8 is what I got across here. 7.8. And then we'll center that on everything. And now this is 3.75. And that should be a minus, I'm pretty sure. Body, yep. So there's that, and I should also include the 5mm hole. 5. Finish. Sketch. Where'd my sketch go? Oh, shoot me. I'm not gonna fix that now. I'll fix that later. As you can see down here on the toolbar, I wasn't paying attention, and I have been on the top level component the whole entire time instead of the monitor mount. I'll go back later on and get those switched over so that these sketches are in the correct place. But until that time, they will be part of the top level component instead, which makes things a little bit more messy, but we'll live with it. So yep, there we are. The last thing I will be doing here, we got plenty of clearance in here, and front and back obviously, but I do want to go ahead and give myself some clearance left to right on the inside here. That way nothing binds up. And actually, if I look at this really quick, yeah, I don't have to do the bottom part here because the the camera is actually smaller than our inside here. But I'll give myself minus 0.05 is what I normally do for offsets. And did I include the walls there? Yeah, I included the walls there. Let's hit the ceiling too, just because the dovetail mount we modeled it off of, and therefore it should be flush. So now the dovetail has some clearance. Yeah, we could do the bottom too. One of those things, it's only 0.05, so I'm not terribly concerned with things getting too loose. And even if they do, it shouldn't be a big deal. Monitor. Where'd my monitor mount go? Why are you turned off right now? There we go. Alright, so now we have clearance all the way around. And that just slides in there, like I said. And again, it can be forwards, backwards a little bit. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's not going to affect much of anything, which is why we have the back open. And that concludes this build. This design, rather, I should say. A couple things I will say, and it's one of those things I'm not going to bother printing, waiting for test prints to get done on stream right now. But I will slice this up into different test segments just to make sure things are fitting together before I print the whole entire thing. Just throwing that out there. That's how I'll be moving forward offline. And otherwise, that completes this design. So thank you, Gail, for showing up live, and thank you anybody else who's watching in the future. For right now, I'm just doing these design streams on single topics, I'm pretty sure. I'm kicking around the idea of doing like full workflows where I'm working on multiple things across a multiple hour period. But for something like that, that's the idea there is, I think it'd be nice if a bunch of people in the community, in the maker community, just kind of had workflow streams like that you could tune into when you're taking a quick break off of whatever you're working on. It's one of those things. It works a little bit better for people who are not necessarily constantly working at their job. So for example, I can't, I wouldn't be able to enjoy that while I'm at my work. I can enjoy it on the weekends, tuning into different people's streams to see what they're up to periodically in between, for example, setting up my printer for the next print, etc., etc., etc. It's a nice little thing that I think would be cool, could happen, and therefore I'm interested in starting it myself, just, because if you want to see something happen, may as well do it yourself. But for the time being, until that becomes more feasible, I'll just be doing these short design streams on single items, since that makes more sense, that's more natural. So again, thank you for watching, thank you for tuning in, and I will probably my next stream, assuming this is set up, let you know how it turned out. So catch you guys there.